Hello fellow Silversaints, I hope you're all doing well. My name is Ashley and this is the Library of a Silversaint where we talk, oh my gosh, all things books. Hello, happy Sunday or whatever day it is that I'm sharing this video from me and Ernie, who apparently wants to, oh my gosh. Yeah, this is how it goes. And oh my God, he just burped on camera. Oh my goodness. You're going to have to sit down. Good boy. Oh my gosh. He climbed on me. He burped in your faces. I can only apologize for the chaos. I'm so sorry. That is not good manners, Ernie. That's not good manners. You know, people don't come here to watch me. They come here to watch you. And then all you do is burp in their faces. That's really rude. Sit down, please. Anyway, hello everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video. How are you all doing? It's been a chaotic week. It's been a chaotic week. It's been a chaotic time. But I'm here. I'm sat down with a beverage, not a biscuit tea, guys. I've got myself a coffee. Fresh coffee. Partner just brewed it. I'm very, very happy. And I just have to mention this. I'm wearing my new, it just arrived yesterday. I have to take a moment to show you. It's my new hoodie from Flowers and Fantasy. You guys know that I love Flowers and Fantasy. Courtney there makes incredible sort of merch for fantasy lovers. And Immy and the Books, one of my most beautiful, gorgeous close friends, designed this print for this collection, which is called the Heartforged collection, which is all to do with John Gwynn's The Faithful and the Fallen series. And Immy designed this collection. Look at it. War eternal between the faithful and the fallen. How gorgeous is that? Immy did it all with her own paints and she designed this gorgeous design. Look how talented is she? Talented friend. My goodness. Immy, I'm so proud. Courtney, I'm so proud. What an incredible collection. And she also included the bright star. Look on the like the cuff. How gorgeous is that? So I just had to show that off. So this is from the Flowers and Fantasy shop, which I will leave the link in the description below with a little code as well for a little 10% discount as well. But I just absolutely, it's just everything. One of my favorite series of all time. Look, it's so lovely. Anyway, I just had to share that. I am back with a slightly different video today. Now, I firstly wanted to just preface this video by just saying, just a little update. I'm going to be a little bit slower with videos until 2026, really. I've got some really busy weeks. You know, this time of year does tend to get a little bit busy, and I don't have any time off work over Christmas, so things get a little bit busy for me and I don't have as much time, and I'm away multiple weekends in a row, back to back. I just wanted to preface just by saying that I'm probably not going to be making many videos until 2026 now, so they will be quite few and far between. So I do apologise in advance for that. I'm going to be a little bit absent for a little while. I obviously will try my absolute best and maybe I'll be better at it than I hope, but I just wanted to just give a little pre-warning that I might be a little bit absent for the next sort of few weeks, sort of towards the end of 2025, but I hope you all understand. And yeah, anyway, let's just carry on with the video. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about audiobooks. And audiobooks, though I know they don't work for everybody, they have been such a great addition just to my life as a reader. And as I say, I know they don't work for everybody, and I have to admit, sometimes for me, it really depends on the style of the book or on the narrator as to whether an audiobook works for me. But I found that they're a really handy and just entertaining way to do some of my reading at the moment. And I've really been loving them. And I really wanted to share in today's video some of my favourite audiobooks personally that I have listened to and absolutely loved. And some of these I've read the physical copies as well, but I just wanted to share because I felt that the audiobook either elevated the experience or was just an incredible experience on its own. So I really wanted to share some of those with you. Now, some of these will not come as any surprise. I think they're very common, sort of like well-known audiobooks, but I wanted to give a moment to share them anyway. Okay, let's jump right into the list. Okay, here we go. Now, the first book on the list, or the first series that comes on the list, I don't think is going to be a surprise to anybody. And that is The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all of the other works by J.R.R. Tolkien that have been released on audiobook narrated by Andy Serkis, Gollum himself. Now, I think these were released a few years ago, I know there are lots of other versions out there, and if there are any other good versions out there, please do let me know. I have so far only delved into the Andy Serkis sort of audiobooks for the Lord of the Rings world, anything in the Middle-earth world by J.R.R. Tolkien, but I have to admit these are pretty good. I mean, it's Andy Serkis, you know, he's a man with many a string to his bow and incredibly talented. And he really just brings it to life. I think there were some moments specifically in The Hobbit that were just beautiful with the dwarves, and how a lot of Middle-earth sort of tales, but anything written by J.R.R. Tolkien is often, a lot of it is in verse. There are a lot of poems, but there's a lot of verse as well. And Andy Serkis does an incredible job at singing and performing those bits. And it just felt incredibly atmospheric. I think he does an incredible job at obviously giving voices to so many of the well-loved characters, as well as Gollum, obviously. Famously, he voices Gollum in the films and acts him out. So I always knew that that voice was going to be really good. But some other voices he's really good at too. In The Hobbit in particular, he's great at the voices of the dwarves and Gandalf. And also, I have to really applaud him for his performance specifically of the scene in The Fellowship of the Ring in the Mines of Moria with the Balrog. It was just absolutely phenomenal. Listening to it, my heart was in my mouth. It was just absolutely brilliant. His performance is astonishing. There are some bits that I don't like so much. The one that didn't work for me very well was his voice and performance of Tom Bombadil's character. I much preferred physically reading that to listening to that, but that's just personal preference. But overall, Andy Serkis' narration of The Lord of the Rings and other works sort of from Middle-earth are just absolutely spellbinding, so I had to mention it. Another series that is going to come as no surprise to anybody is the Red Rising saga by Pierce Brown. Now, I'm specifically talking about the graphic audios for these. I've not listened to the non-graphic audio versions, of which there are. Now, the only hindrance with the graphic audios is that they film them in parts or record them in parts. So the first trilogy, for example, in Red Rising, Golden Sun and Morning Star, they're recorded in parts 1 and 2, parts 1 and 2, parts 1 and 2 for each one, which is a problem if you're like me and you were using Audible for them, because it means that you would have to use 2 credits for each book. So they do work out as being a little bit expensive in that sense. So that is one downside to them. But the benefit, I guess, of that once having them and having them downloaded is that you have access to them forever. And they are just incredible. They are narrated by a full cast. So you've got the voice of Darrow, but voices for all of the other characters, all completely unique. And I honestly think the performances are amazing. Now, these books are also elevated because you have all the additional sound effects that are going with it. So that, you know, that is sort of adding to the overall experience and just makes it so immersive. And it's like having a movie in your head. And I think at the beginning of the audio, it does even say, like a movie in your head. It really is like a movie in your head. I switched to the audio with Red Rising from physical. So I read Red Rising physically and then progressed to doing the graphic audio for Golden Sun and Morning Star in my first read through. And I don't think it's just the audio that made it better. I personally thought Golden Sun and Morning Star were far better written than Red Rising, but they really did elevate and improve my experience. I'm not saying that was just because of the graphic audio, but it did really help as well. It really added to it. And then when I did my reread just over the last couple of months of the first 3 books, I listened to the graphic audio for my reread, and then also listened to the graphic audio for Iron Gold, which is in the second era of the Red Rising saga. Now, I'm going to stop listening to the graphic audios at this point, just as like a little reading update. My next book is Dark Age. That has actually been split into 3 parts for the audio, which is a little bit much for me. I don't think they've all been recorded. So I think part 1 is available, but I don't think part 2 is available yet. And having 3 credits for 1 book just seems like it's too expensive. So I'm switching to physical, but this part of the series is written a lot more differently, and I think the physical read will be better for me anyway. But I have to say, the graphic audios for the Red Rising world are just incredible. The performances are brilliant. The sound effects are fantastic. It is like a movie in your head. I would highly recommend for a reread or for a first time read. They are just incredible. Say one thing about Ashley. Say she loves Stephen Pacey's voice. I could not make a list of the best audiobooks without mentioning any of the first law books by Joe Abercrombie, which have been narrated by Stephen Pacey. Now, this isn't specifically going to be first law because I know that Stephen Pacey has narrated a lot of Joe Abercrombie's books, including The Devils, his most recent release, which is not in the first law world. However, I have to say first law because these are the only ones I've read. So I have read the first law trilogy and then 2 of the standalones. Well, I finished one of the standalones and I'm now currently listening to the second one. So I've listened to the first law trilogy, which is The Blade Itself, Before They Are Hanged, and Last Argument of Kings. And I then did a buddy read of Best Served Cold with Jake from Nerd Level Rising and Andrew from Brother Grimdark on Instagram. We did that, and I did that on audio as well. And then now I'm actually currently listening to The Heroes, which is another standalone in the First Law world, with my friend Liam from the Scottish Guy That Reads on Instagram. Absolutely adoring it. Stephen Pacey is one of my favourite narrators of all time. In fact, I think he probably is my favourite narrator of all time. I absolutely adore him. He brings the First Law to life, just completely to life. The range of his voices and the emotion that he puts into it is just fantastic. He hits it on the head every time. It's a very dark series, but with a lot of humour. There's a lot of comedic relief throughout, and a lot of wit and a lot of sarcasm as well. And Stephen Pacey just hits those notes every single time. His voices for the Northmen in the First Law world are spectacular. And I have to say, Inquisitor Glockter from First Law has a lisp in the book because he's missing loads of teeth, and Stephen Pacey's voice with the lisp for him is just, it's incredible. It's such a good performance. I read the First Law trilogy and reread the First Law trilogy within, I think, a month or 2 at the beginning of the year, earlier on this year with Leanne from Amongst Chaos She Reads. And honestly, it's been one of the best experiences in my life, not only because the books are absolutely fantastic and some of the best books I've ever read in my life, but because Stephen Pacey's narration on top of that is just the cherry on top. He just makes it. It's so good. I would highly recommend. I would also recommend, if you are somebody that has tried the First Law, The Blade Itself specifically, and maybe not gelled with it very well, I would highly recommend trying the audiobooks. I would highly recommend them. I feel that if it's something because I think the first book specifically, but the First Law trilogy, there's so many threads going on. Having Stephen Pacey give different voices to those, I think may help you if it's something you're struggling with. But honestly, the books, the audiobooks, both fantastic, but I had to mention them on this list because Stephen Pacey is fantastic. When he's not narrating a book in my ear, for a couple of weeks or so, I start to get withdrawals. I start to miss him. And that's saying something. Another series I have to mention is a YA sort of sci-fi series called the Illuminae Files. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a little while, you will know this. I listen to these on audio. I do also have the physical. I do have the physical copies as well. Actually, that's a lie. I read the first one physically, got to 50%, and then started listening to the audio because I was able to access it through ebook through audio from my library. And then I just carried on because it was so good. So the Illuminae Files is, like I say, a sort of YA sci-fi space opera series. There's a lot of sort of commentary on AI and AI getting into the wrong hands. And there's a huge conspiracy sort of all taking place on these spaceships. And it involves teenagers. And it's great. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And even though it's YA, it definitely discusses some really interesting themes. But the audio is performed by a full cast again. And it's just absolutely brilliant. The voice for the AI character, who is Aiden, is absolutely brilliant. He's exactly what I hoped he would be. When I was reading it, I didn't have a voice for him in my head, but I knew that the way he read in terms of his dialogue was a bit creepy and a bit sort of, obviously he's AI, but kind of weirdly human and trying to be emotional, but not quite being able to. And the person that narrated his voice did an excellent job of striking that. And it's just fantastic. The audio is so much fun. I loved it. And again, it really added to the experience. Now, the physical books themselves, so this series is all done through sort of logs. So you've got like training logs, journals, emails, instant messaging through their sort of, their like spaceship cortex thing system that's like on their wrists, or you've got interviews, or you've got CCTV footage which is being narrated by someone watching it and transcribing it all down. It's all of these ship logs. So physically reading is great fun too, but I think the audio really elevates the experience. So I would highly recommend the Illuminae Files for an audiobook as well, especially if you just want something fun and just something you can get whisked away into and enjoy, and that's really enjoyable. It's not heavy, it's really fun, but it doesn't read too YA for me. It reads perfectly. I love it. I love the series. I love the audiobooks. So would highly recommend. Now, this is a series that the next series that I'm going to mention, I have not spoken about in a while because I stopped my journey with this series, but I did not stop my journey because of the audiobooks. The audiobooks are absolutely fantastic, and that is Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinnerman, which is narrated by Jeff Hayes. Now, I read books 1, 2, and 3, but the narrator, Jeff Hayes, is absolutely incredible. Dungeon Crawler Carl is like a lit RPG where we are looking at Carl, who is just an average guy. He's not living his best life at the moment. He is single, recently broken up with his girlfriend, and he's living with his girlfriend's cat. And the world goes into utter catastrophe. Everything goes wrong. It's destroyed, and he is put into a game with these aliens into these dungeons, and he's essentially put on the bottom level and he has to work his way up. And it's it's a game. He is absolutely brilliant. Jeff Hayes voices all of the voices in the book, and he does them absolutely brilliantly. And it's really, really funny. And because he's narrating specifically two characters, Carl and Princess Donut, his cat, who can speak when they go into this game. He is able to narrate, not only is he able to narrate both voices, but he's also able to just make them work so well together that their relationship really comes across. I think it's utter genius, and I would highly recommend. Now, I say I haven't carried on with the series. I stopped after book 3 for a little bit. I am planning to carry on one day, I think. The only problem is that there's 7 books at the moment. And I don't think they're all finished. I think there's still more coming out. And the only thing I would say is that where I've got to, it started to get quite repetitive. Every book is a new level in the game, and it was a little bit repetitive. So I have stopped, but I might go back one day and dive back in. If you've finished Dungeon Crawler Carl, or you read past book 3, please let me know if you think it's worth it. I'm not 100% sure yet, but not because of the audio. The audio was absolutely fantastic and great fun. I would highly recommend. When I first initially started listening to audiobooks, I tended to only listen to non-fiction. I really struggled to be able to follow fiction books because my attention would just drift. Whereas I found with non-fiction books, when I listened to them on an audio, it just sounded like I was listening to a podcast. And so I was able to maintain my concentration a bit better. A book that I absolutely adored listening to was Unruly by David Mitchell. Now, I have mentioned this on my channel before. This is David Mitchell's account of the history of Great Britain's kings and queens. Now, he does stress in his book that lots of information about Great Britain's kings and queens has been lost to the mists of time. So he admits fully that he can only give as accurate a representation as he is able to with the information that we have. And some of it, will have been warped over the years through different ears and different mouths. The book is absolutely fantastic. If you are in any shape or form interested in history, specifically the kings and queens of Great Britain, I would highly recommend this. Not only was it incredibly informative and very interesting, though taking it with a pinch of salt because obviously that some of it may be pretty false, it's also utterly hilarious. Now, I love history as a subject, and I love learning more about it. For me, the delivery of it doesn't always have to be comedic, but it does kind of help because I think it makes it more interesting and just more engaging. And David Mitchell, being a professional comedian as well as being a historian, makes for a great balance. So his recounting of some of these facts and of these bits of information that could be really laborious, end up just being the most hilarious listening experience. I utterly adored it. I've read this book, I think 2 or 3 times now. I think it's 2. I think I've read it twice. I reread it earlier this year with Abby, Books and 3 Cats. We kind of did it together at the same time because we just needed something. We just needed something funny. And I always knew I wanted to reread it. And we both did it together via audio. And we were just texting back and forth each day, different quotes, because it was just utterly hilarious. But also, we were just baffled by the history of our own Great Britain that we live in. But I would highly recommend this if you like history and you would like a little bit of humour. Unruly by David Mitchell. I adored it. And actually, in a similar vein to that, I also want to recommend Agrippina. Now, this is written by Emma Southon, but it is narrated by Imogen Church. So this is a sort of like a feminist... Sorry, that's the doorbell going. This is like a feminist biography about Agrippina. So we're looking at Roman history. So Agrippina, there were 2 Agrippinas. There were probably many more than that. But there was Agrippina the Elder and Agrippina the Younger. And in this book, we were reading about Agrippina the Younger. Now, I'm going to do a terrible job at sort of giving a clear account of what happened. So I'm just going to quickly read the blurb of this. So it said, they said she was a tyrant, a murderer, and the most wicked woman in history. She kicked her way into the male species of politics and demanded to be recognised as an equal and a leader. For her audacity, she was murdered by her son and reviled by history. She was the sister, niece, wife, and mother of emperors. She was an empress in her own right, and she was nuanced, fearless trailblazer in the Roman world. The story of Agrippina, the first empress of Rome, is the story of an empire at its bloody, extravagant, chaotic, and ruthless height. I say I read this earlier this year. This was recommended to me by Abby, Books and 3 Cats, my fellow. She is like my mythological history guru. I go to her if I need any recommendations for anything to do with mythology or history. She's fantastic. And she was reading Agrippina and said that it was absolutely fantastic. The audio was great. So I decided to pick it up and give it a go. And very similarly to David Mitchell when he wrote Unruly, Imogen Church / Emma Southon. I know Emma Southon obviously wrote it. So she wrote it with not only a very informative sort of approach, but also with some comedic relief in there as well to make it a little bit more digestible and just a bit more interesting to read. And it was utterly hilarious. And I think Imogen Church, in terms of her narration, I think she delivered it absolutely brilliantly. It was perfect. It was so funny, but so intriguing. And honestly, the story was utterly breathtaking. I'd never heard of Agrippina, and I couldn't believe that I'd never heard of her. I'd never heard of a Roman empress before. And it baffled me, especially considering what she achieved and what she did in her life. It baffled me that I'd never heard of her. But I'm so glad that I read this book. I would highly recommend the audio. As I say, it was delivered fantastically. It was both that equal balance between being cutthroat in terms of the information that it was delivering and straight and to the point, but also the heartbreaking moments felt heartbreaking. The funny moments felt funny. The powerful moments felt powerful. It was delivered utterly brilliantly, and I would highly recommend this audiobook. That is the current list that I have. Now, I do listen to quite a few audiobooks, and these are the ones that so far have been probably some of my favourites in terms of their performance and the delivery, and I would highly recommend these, but I'm sure I will have many more to add to this list in the future. There are some that haven't worked for me, and I've DNF'd them because of that point, or I've stopped listening to the audio and transferred to a different method of reading just because the audio wasn't working for me. But these ones worked absolutely brilliantly, and I would highly recommend. Please let me know down below in the comments what your favourite audiobooks are or recommendations are. If you have any, I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please do give it a like. I would really appreciate it, and I would be so grateful. And if you'd like to stick around and become a firm member of the Library of a Silver Saint, please do hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you join us in the family. Look at that happy face. He'd be so happy. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.